So the third sample that I want to talk about is placing resources under governance. So we've already talked about governed data. Governed data is a subset of your resources that you are interested in having more control over from a policy perspective, from an attestation perspective, etc. So let's say you already have a list of resources out there that are already governed, and you keep track of those in something like an Excel spreadsheet or something, not an uncommon scenario. Well, what you can do with the DGE PowerShell commands is you could actually write functionality. You could write a PowerShell script to enumerate over those pre-existing governed resources that are external to DGE, external to One Identity Manager, and you can import them via the DGE PowerShell command. And by importing them, you can actually set things like you can optionally publish them to the IT shop, you can set the data owners for them, etc., etc. So very useful PowerShell command. So this is it here. I'm going to copy this one out. There we go. Set-Q data under governance. Again, takes a managed host ID, the resource type, and here in this case we're going to be governing a share with the resource URI, so it's the sales share. Optionally, I can set a display path. The employee ID, so this parameter allows you to set the UID of the employee who you want to own the resource. We have other options. You can actually specify a UID for a role, or you can specify an employee name. There's a few other options, and we'll talk about some of those later. I can show you the help file where you can get more help on the different parameters. And the final one I'm using here is use backing folder security. When you publish a resource to the IT shop, one of the things that DGE asks is, which security are you interested in? Are you interested in the share security or the folder security for the determination of the best fit group that's going to provide that access? So here I'm going to use backing folder security. So what I want to show you really quickly in the manager is that when we go to govern data, right now that sales share is not there, right? I only have a few here. I have sister stuff and I have Lenny's secret share. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute that command. Here we go. So I am going to place that resource under governance. There we go, finished. And let's go back to govern data. And there it is. There's my shared sales stuff, right? So there's the share, and it also went and it governed the backing folder as well. So even though I only governed the share, the default behavior of DGE is to also govern the representative folder under the covers. So that's what happened there. So calling things in PowerShell, you can go back to the manager and you can validate that what you just did in PowerShell is actually here. And of course, you could also view this in the object browser within the QAM DUG tables. It's a little slow, but here we go. I'm going to scroll up to the QAM DUG table. And again, QAM DUG is where we store governed resources. So here you go. You can see the other two. There's the sales share right there, right? Sales share, sales folder. There it is. There's the governed resource within the object browser. So, and the backing folder is right there. So for all of this, we have extensive documentation. We have it in two places. So the first place is in the user guide, right? So here's the user guide. We have in Appendix B, the PowerShell commands. So all of the regular PowerShell commands you need for adding managed domains, adding managed hosts, setting agent properties, etc., etc. All of the access-based reporting in terms of an account access report or resource access report, all of those are documented in the PowerShell appendix, again, Appendix B. So you can find all the documentation there. The other thing is you can also run get help on any of the PowerShell commands with the examples parameter of get help to give you some examples on how to run those PowerShell commands. Okay, so these are the basic DGE PowerShell commands documented in the user guide, the DGE user guide. The second place where PowerShell commands are documented are in the IT shop guide. So any PowerShell commands that are specific to anything around the IT shop, specifically around the new file share request. So in the IT shop, where in DGE you can request that a new resource gets created, a new share get created. There's a whole series of PowerShell commands available for customizing things like the actual share template, the group naming patterns, etc., etc. All of that is available via PowerShell, and you can see some of the PowerShell commands we have available here. So, very important to look into the docs, using the get help on the PowerShell commands, etc. But we try to make most, if not all, of the functionality through data governance available via PowerShell. So the benefit of having it in PowerShell is if there's functionality that you want to be able to execute from within a one identity manager process chain, for example, then you have that ability by executing directly those DGE PowerShell commands. So there's a lot of benefits in having those. So that is an overview of DGE PowerShell.